It's Nims Obunge. He's a former mayoral contestant in London, and he joins me on the ward now to discuss the latest developments. Good to have you join us.
Great to be with you.
Now, King Charles has arrived in London, and for all intents and purposes, his reign has officially begun. Tell us what will happen when the Accession Council proclaims him king tomorrow.
Well, I suppose first thing I should say is that before I go into that, I think that I want to honor the memory of an amazing woman who I had the privilege of meeting many years ago when she awarded me an MB, and I had the privilege, I still do have the privilege of serving as a deputy lieutenant to the royal family, and just being able to have spoken with her. And I remember the day when she was giving me the MB, and I was thanking her for the work she did and the work her son did, and we had a long conversation. And thereafter we've spoken, and I just think that that was just a very dear woman. We've had several other encounters, but each of them has been with such, she has had such poise. And I think there's something we all need to take from her legacy. It's one thing to talk about the future, but I want to celebrate the past of this amazing woman who held her own in any situation, and actually leaves behind a legacy, not just in her children and grandchildren, but a legacy of what true statesmanship is about and what it is to love and lend the government over to Liz Truss, upon which thereafter she was, as if God took her and she gave her life over. You know, she died the way she did. And I think all over Great Britain, we celebrate her life, her legacy. And there's a lot to be said about Queen Elizabeth II. But now to Charles, who is an amazing man. I've also had the privilege of meeting King Charles III. He is, what will happen after the Ascension meeting is it's clear that he is, first Ascension committee will meet, they will be meeting, the Ascension panel will meet an hour before he comes in. And after that hour, he will come in because they will look at the proclamation positioning, and he will come in, and it's all going to be televised. And then there will be a proclamation of him being king. And at that point, there will be proclamations made shortly after in all the parts, all the countries where that represents the United Kingdom. So in Scotland, in Wales, it'll happen in Northern Ireland, and here in London. And I believe that from then onwards, he would now go on a journey to all the countries that I've just alluded to. And he will receive motions of condolence, but also just affirming his positioning as king over the United Kingdom.
And I know you have met her. I mean, I think we did that report as well. And I was going to ask you to talk about that much later. But interesting you started with that. Thanks for sharing your experience with us. But staying on King Charles, he's scheduled to meet the Prime Minister Liz Truss today. She was appointed Prime Minister barely 3 days ago by Her Majesty the Queen, who passed away yesterday. But what do you think will be going through her mind, considering the fact that she only just met one sovereign and is now meeting another? And I think she's about the only Prime Minister who has had that kind of experience.
Absolutely. I think Liz Truss is unique in her positioning. And I think that in the fact that she is now in that position, having met Queen Elizabeth and then now meeting King Charles III. I keep saying Charles, do forgive us. I think she would be counting it an absolute honor, an absolute privilege to be in that position. She has significant responsibilities because there's an election that's going to be brewing here in the next 18 months or thereabout. 2 years, 18 months, and she has a responsibility to address the crisis that brought her into power. But at this moment, I think the responsibility that weighs heavily on her would be to ensure that everything is in place to have the funeral work as it should be, because leaders from all the world, the Commonwealth and all over the world, will be coming into the United Kingdom. So she has to be preparing how she receives the world into the United Kingdom. And she would also be thinking about the responsibility that also sits on her to take this nation forward, working very closely, obviously, with King Charles III. So there's a significant responsibility on her and her cabinet.
Absolutely.
We can only pray for.
And perhaps that is the most significant funeral in modern history. I'm not sure that there has been anyone like it with the eyes of the world watching out for that funeral. But I'm sure you saw pictures of King Charles and the Queen Consort Camilla as they disembarked from the aircraft that brought them from Scotland. It just sort of shows that the moment of private life is over, as they will now have.
Some for not so great reasons and others for amazing reasons. And I believe that with all the times, and there have been a number that we have sat, we've talked, I can only say that King Charles is ready to reign, and we wish him well. And the Queen